Hey, good morning, honorable members and OCPOL team and our stakeholders. Good morning.
Morning, Honorable Chair.
Morning, sir.
Morning, everyone.
Do we have a quorum? Member Litwaba, Member Malema,
Member Adams, Member Bloom. I think we do have a quorum, Chair.
Oh, we do have a quorum. Thank you very much. Good morning, honorable members and OCPOL team and our stakeholders. I hope that you have used your recess productively. I know there's no rest for politicians and leaders, but welcome back in this term. And thank you for the work that you have been doing, OCPOL team. I want to declare this meeting open and welcome everyone in this meeting. It's a little bit long agenda, but it's going to be us who will either make it too long or too short. I will therefore ask for apologies. Any apology? Mr. Stoll.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. We have not received any apologies from members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think the agenda has been sent to members. It's also flighted. Can I have the mover for the adoption of the agenda?
Honorable Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I move for that. I move for the adoption of the agenda as proposed, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Malema. Is that member Litwaba?
Yes, it was there.
Okay, you are seconding.
I second.
Thank you very much, member Litwaba. Then can we then go to item 4, which is the adoption of the minutes of our previous meeting that we held on the 8th of June. I think members, you got the minutes and you went through them. Can I have a mover for the adoption of those minutes?
Mr. Chair, I move for the adoption of the minutes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bloom. Can I have a seconder?
I would have loved to second, Chair. Unfortunately, I left the meeting a bit earlier.
Yeah, I know. Can I have a seconder, please?
Okay, I was not in the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let's park this item. We'll come back to it later.
Or maybe the other thing, Chair, sorry to interrupt you. I don't think there's anything that precludes you from seconding if you attended that meeting and presided over it, Chair. You can as well.
You can preside and also second. Okay.
I carry you are just confirming that indeed is a true reflection of what was discussed or transpired in that meeting.
Oh yeah. If that helps, then it's fine. Yes, it is a true reflection. Therefore, I second Mr. Bloom, Honorable Bloom. Then the minutes are adopted. No matters arising. Can we go then to item 6, which is the presentation and the adoption of the draft third term of the program? Mr. Stoller.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning once again, honorable members and colleagues. On the 26th July 2023, we had our strategic planning session. It was on visual platform. Then this term we have allocated 4 meetings. The first meeting is today, where the presentation and adoption of the third term program will be the presentation of the following: the first quarter performance report for OOP and GPL. And we are expecting the stakeholders to make their submission today. Deliberation and adoption of the committee study tour report, the presentation of the analysis of responses to the resolution of the following reports. 1, the budget vote 1, OOP adjustment budget for 2022-23, the fourth quarter performance report for OOP, and the fourth quarter report of the GPL. The second meeting will be on the 17th August, where the Office of the Premier will come and present the first quarterly performance report. Also responding to the responses, excuse me. And there is a report that members wanted. The Office of the Premier will be presenting a full report on the contract between Harambee and the OOP on the implementation of OCPOL 1 million project from inception, including the exit report. The second session, the Legislature will be presenting their first quarter performance report. Sorry, members, I have a little bit of flu. Responses to the questions emanating from the committee research. The third meeting will be on the 24th of August. The deliberation and adoption of the committee oversight report on the following first quarter performance report and GPL performance report. The last meeting will be a roundtable on increased economic participation for persons with disability. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any inputs? Then in the absence of inputs, can we have the mover for the door? I see a hand here, Mr. Malema, Honorable Malema.
Oh, I actually wanted to, thank you once more, Honorable Chair. I actually wanted to move for the adoption of the proposed third term program before us, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malema. Can I have a seconder?
I second, Honorable Chair, Member Adams.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Thank you very much. Can we then move to the next item, which is the presentation on the analysis of the Office of the Premier's first quarterly performance report for 2023-2024. Dhlamini.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members and colleagues and our invited stakeholders into the meeting. Can I confirm that I am in fact audible and that my presentation is on the screen?
You're audible, ma'am, and we can see the presentation.
Thank you so much. I'm going to present the first quarter performance report of the Office of the Premier for the 23-24 financial year. Just as a way of beginning, the presentation will cover the executive summary and go into the introduction, which speaks to the crux of the report, the methodology that was followed in analyzing this report, as well as the compliance of the office. Oversight on strategic priorities is also covered, achievement on APP targets, and the oversight on financial performance, as well as emerging priorities, and we'll close with an overall assessment. And at the end, there will be a number of questions that would have emanated from the analysis for the Office of Premier to respond to. In terms of the Office's achievement on its APP target, these are grouped in terms of 3 programs, which is Program 1, Administration, Program 2, Institutional Development, as well as Program 3, which is Policy and Governance. In terms of the Office's achievement in the quarter, 19 of the 26 planned targets have been achieved, and of the 7 targets that were not achieved, 5 emanate from Program 1, 1 is from Program 2, and 1 is from Program 3. In terms of Program 1, it had 7 targets in the quarter and 2 were achieved, translating to 29% achievement against a 77% budget spent. Program 2 achieved 6 of its 7 targets in the quarter, translating to 86% against a budget expenditure of 63% in the quarter. Program 3 achieved 11 of its 12 planned targets in the quarter, translating to 92% achievement against a budget spend of 93%. Then in terms of the annual budget allocation of the office, it reflects that the expenditure is at 125.2 million in the quarter against the annual budget of 886 million, registering a 14% expenditure on the annual budget. Then in expenditure for the quarter is currently at 73% against the projected quarterly budget of 171.9 million, reflecting that 125.2 million that I've already spoken to. The office has started on a regressive footing on targets for procurement spend on women, youth, people with disabilities, as well as township spend, as none of these have been achieved in the quarter under review, with the exception of Black people spend, which registered 82% against the target at 80%. In terms of the, we do note that the office does need to take cognizance of its targeted plans going forward, as an achievement of 73% of the planned targets is satisfactory, and better care should then be taken, especially as it relates to the procurement targets for targeted groups, as these are glaring in the quarter. Then, as a way of introduction, Chair, we just speak to the fact that the first quarterly report provides the committee with the preliminary indicators on the implementation of program. It therefore allows the committee to assess the performance of the office to ensure that the use of resources in terms of the allocation to programs, financial, human, and capital is in fact consistent with the projections made. In this case, the committee will then strive to ensure that, noting that 3 months into the financial has passed into the financial year, the programs planned in the associated APP are then being realized, and this is also consistent in terms of the budget spent. Additionally, the sector oversight model then guides this analysis. It alerts us in terms of the failure of current expenditure, in terms of the inputs and the likelihood of realizing outputs, and whether this is fundamentally jeopardized. We would get a chance to assess this in the first quarter report. I'm sorry, I got a bit interrupted by the connection. Then in terms of the, as per the expectation of reporting. Then in terms of the submission, the report was in fact submitted on time. It was submitted at the end of the quarter as per the required prescripts. Then we go into provincial priorities. I'm also going to skip this, Chair, noting that the members are au fait with the priorities of the office, and these are consistent throughout, and go straight into analyzing these in terms of the outcomes and the achievements of the office as it relates to the outcomes. In terms of the valid invoices, the office has managed to pay 98% of valid invoices within the 15 days of receipt. 100% of cases recommended for referral to law enforcement agencies have been reported to LEAs by the departments during the quarter under review. The provincial forensic audit received a total of 560 national anti-corruption hotline cases from the Office of the Public Service Commission. Of the 560, 28 backlog cases were resolved, resulting in a 507 cases being closed in the database. You would note, Chair, that these numbers do not tally, so we have taken into consideration in terms of the questions to the office to give a proper reporting on this section. In terms of the SMS members, 753 of SMS field posts, 237 have been vetted and 458 are awaiting feedback. The office further reported that 58 SMS officials within GPG have not yet applied for security clearance, and this has been attributed to a significant increase in the number of SMS members who are awaiting feedback vetting that is due to reapplication of the vetting members whose security clearances have expired. Then in terms of compliance, in terms of employment of marginal groups, 12 of the 14 GPG departments, that's 86%, are compliant with the 2% national employment target. The average for the province stands at 2.46, which is calculated as 4,595 persons with disabilities employed in the GPG workforce. The Department of Social Development is the leading department in the representation of persons with disabilities in terms of proportional to workplace. 3 of the 14 departments are, however, still under the 2% employment target. Then in terms of outcome 2, a growing inclusive economy, jobs and infrastructure, the achievement and procurement targets for GPG wide stand at women's spend is at 29% against the targeted 40%. Youth is at 8.3% against the targeted 15%. People with disabilities 0.32 against the targeted 7%. Then in terms of these targets, as it relates to the Office of the Premier, Black people stands at 82% against a target of 80%. Women's spend is at 38% against the target of 30%. Youth spend at 9% against a target of 50%. Maybe I can pause here and highlight why this the section on women's spend has been highlighted, because the reporting of the office does not tally, and I'll speak to this on the next slide. Youth spend is currently at 9% against 15%. People with disabilities, 0.46% against 7%, and township spend is at 7% against 30%. Then in terms of the analysis, as I've spoken to in terms of the previous highlight, the analysis does note that the office reports the achievement on women's spend as at 38% against a target of 30%. However, cross-referencing with the APP places the office's target for women at 40% and not 30% reported. This is then referred to in page 41 of the APP, meaning that the office has in fact also underachieved on women, which registered 38% against the 40% target. Further to this, the office has started on a regressive pattern in terms of people with disabilities, which registers 0.46% against the targeted 7% in the quarter. In quarter 3, an achievement of, that's an error there. The committee is, we've noted the committee is currently running an FIS on this issue and hopes to come up with solutions to assist the office in ensuring that this group is not left behind. Then in terms of the central supplier database, we did receive a bit more information on the issues of people with disabilities in the first quarter, where the office has further reported that the central supplier database has 4,546 entrepreneurs with disabilities who are registered on the system nationally. And of these, 2,485, that is 55%, are registered in the Gauteng province. On average, there's 232 companies that have been newly registered yearly since 2015. And what is of concern is that there's a number of companies owned by people with disabilities who registered in 2022 and has been at its lowest since 2011. Businesses owned by people with disabilities in the Gauteng province have registered for 82 different services on this CSD system, and the highest number of the companies in terms of the service that they provide in the province is food and beverage services, which stands at 327, construction of buildings stands at 314, and other personal service activities at 191, and closing with accommodation at 181. The office further adds that the Department of Economic Development in the Gauteng province has developed a list of 94 township enterprises who are registered and verified to be able to manufacture and supply a range of goods and services. The list is, however, not broken down in terms of the percentage owned by women, youth, and persons with disabilities, and the office has recommended that this list be updated to include this breakdown. Then in terms of an inclusive outcome 3, which is the inclusive equality, education and healthcare and growing the skills needed for the economy, the office has not reported any achievement under this outcome. In fact, has left the reporting on this space blank. The committee may need to be appraised on this lack of reporting for this outcome, also noting that the standard has been that you provide an update to the committee should there be no progress made on a particular issue. In terms of outcome 4, which is spatial transformation, integrated planning under priority integrated human settlements, basic services and land use, the indicator has not achieved anything. We note that it had not achieved anything in the last financial year. The office had initially reported engagements. However, in the first quarter of the 23-24 financial year, there has been achievement reported, where the office has reported a total of 95 smallholder producers. Of the 95, 21 have been supported to produce food in Citibank and West Rand, and 13 were commercialized. Furthermore, 60 smallholder livestock and poultry producers are targeted for commercialization have received veterinary support. A total of 375 smallholders have participated in the capacity building program for smallholders. The office further conducted 20 capacity building sessions for smallholder producers who are going to be commercialized. Then in terms of the outcome 5, which is on engagement with government and the citizenry to deepen social cohesion, the committee held the 2023 Freedom Day. Also of highlight to this slide is the fact that the President Ramaphosa did visit the city of Tshwane in the Roy Vata wastewater treatment plant to attend to the issues of the wastewater treatment in Tshwane, to monitor the progress on the Hammanskraal water issues. The office further facilitated and disseminated information to educate the public about government programs which are aimed at promoting knowledge and social change, and also led various engagements across 5 regions which are provided to provide tailored information to empower people of Gauteng. Then in terms of the collaborative relations, the World Bank paid a courtesy visit to the Premier Lesotho, and this was mainly to take stock of existing bilateral cooperations and to explore new paths and expanding cooperation between Gauteng Province and the World Bank. The Premier also hosted a meeting with GPG departments on the upcoming BRICS Summit. The Office of the Premier was also convened a meeting with the GGDA and the Baleka Mbele Foundation to discuss how best Gauteng could participate in the Inter-Africa Trade Fair, which is coming up in November 2023. Then in terms of outcome 7, which is GCR energy sector reform, the office has reported that a process to appoint a service provider is currently still underway, and progress on this will commence as soon as this appointment has been made. In terms of measurement of service delivery impact by the office, we do note the Service Delivery Interventions Unit facilitated the implementation of interventions on rapid responses in the quarter under review. There were 55 of these for the period from the 1st of April to the 30th of June. Of the 55 cases, the city of Joburg accounted for most of the cases with 30, followed by the city of Ekurhuleni with 18 cases, the West Rand with 4 cases, city of Tshwane with 2, and Citibank with 1 case. Then in terms of further monitoring of interventions to prevent protests in the quarter, there were 15 of these implemented. The city of Joburg accounted for 9 of these, with Citibank 3 cases, city of Ekurhuleni 2, and the city of Tshwane 1. There were no interventions for the West Rand. In terms of the thorough analysis on the achievement of APP targets, there were 26 targets in the quarter. Of the 26, 7 were not achieved. In terms of highlighting the main areas that have registered underperformance in the quarter under review, it's the 100% payment of service providers, which has not been achieved and stands at 98%. Sorry, that is an error. And then preferential procurement spend for people with disabilities, which stands at 0.46 against the targeted 7%. Women's spend, which is at 38% against the targeted 40%. Youth spend, which is at 9% against the targeted 15%. The township-based economy enterprises, which is at 17% against the targeted 30%. The office's target for hosting 3 cabinet community engagements was also not achieved, where the office held 1 instead of the 3 targeted for the quarter, as well as the issuing of the 3 fraud detection reports that were due in this quarter, and the office managed to issue 1 of these. In terms of going into the programmatic analysis, the first section will look at Program 1. As I've alluded in the summary of the analysis, the program has 7 targets for the quarter. These fall within 2 outcomes. Outcome 1, a skilled, capable, and ethical developmental state, and Outcome 2, which is a growing inclusive economy. and it is realized through 3 sub-programs. The first program, risk and security risk and management, the sub-program had 1 target and it has been achieved. The vetting of officials in high-risk areas, the report in this case was produced as planned. Then in terms of financial management, of the 6 planned targets under this program, it achieved only 1. Achievement of the target relates to preferential spend for Black people, which I've already touched on. Then the office deviated from the achievement on paying invoices and achieved 98%. The deviation is attributed to the service providers who have failed to upload on the web portal, and the office has endeavored to encourage service providers to upload their invoices as soon as the service has been rendered. Then in terms of the preferential targets, these also fall under the sub-program. I'm not going to go into this detail as I've spoken to it in the summary. And then just to highlight that the office it does have a number of measures that the report goes through before it comes to the legislatures, but it seems that there needs to be tightening in terms of the quality checking of the report when it comes through, as there are a number of inconsistencies. In terms of the mitigation on people owned with disabilities, the office has spoken to issues of trying to engage businesses owned by people with disabilities to ensure that they do place more focus on these businesses. Then in terms of program 1, which had 7 planned targets in the quarter under review and achieved only 2 against a budget spend of 77%. Then in terms of program 2, I'm going to skip the slide and go straight to just to say that it achieves its targets through 3 sub-programs. The first sub-program, Strategic Human Resources, the sub-program had 2 targets planned in the quarter and achieved both of these targets, the 1 quarterly report on the status of GPG department staff establishment, as well as the 1 quarterly report on the compliance of GPG departments on hearings held within 60 days from the date of precautionary suspension. Then in terms of communication services, this sub-program didn't meet the target that was planned under this program, which relates to holding 3 cabinet community engagement and held 1. It attributes this deviation to receiving a report that didn't meet the technical indicator descriptor. And as a mitigation, the office has advised that the program manager has been requested to ensure that the evidence submitted meets the TID. Then in terms of service delivery intervention, the sub-program achieved all 4 targets planned. These are 1 quarterly report on tracking of cases for cases lodged on the CRA system, 1 quarterly report on the household, community and ward profiles conducted, and 1 quarterly report on the interventions implemented for potential directed to the Premier, and it exceeded the target of 87% of registered COCTA CDWs using the CRM system and achieved 94%. The committee should note that this target this target was not achieved in the last quarter of the 22-23 financial year, and this shows an improvement as the office has since exceeded this target in the first quarter of the 23-24 financial year. Then just as a summary, program 2 achieved 6 of its 7 planned targets in the quarter, translating to 86% achievements against a budget of 63%. Program 3, policy and governance. The program had 12 targets, and these fall under the 5 outcomes, and its targets are realized through 5 sub-programs. Program 1, GOD and MVO, it achieved all 3 of its planned targets in the quarter, the 1 report on GPG-wide procurement spend, the 1 quarterly report on the alignment of departmental sector policies, programs and budget for provincial transformation policies, as well as 1 quarterly report on the compliance of GPG departments to military veterans plan. The sub-program, CEPO 1 million, it met the 1 target planned. It produced the quarterly report on the implementation of the CEPO 1 million as targeted for in the quarter under review. I think just to pause here and say that the committee would note that the office has been requested to come in on the 17th of August and report on the issues of the Harambee contract as it stands in terms of the reporting that was reported in the 22-23 financial year, that this contract had in fact been cancelled. Then in terms of intergovernmental relations, all 3 targets planned under this program were achieved. This is one analysis report on intergovernmental relations, 1 report on the collaboration with Africa and the world, and 1 strategic regional level structured engagement. In terms of service delivery and integrity management, the sub-program had 5 targets planned. And met 4 of these targets. The 1 engagement session with stakeholders on the implementation of the international program and held 2, which means it exceeded target on this one. The 1 strategic regional structured engagement was held. 100% of fraud cases were reported to law enforcement. 91% reported fraud and corruption cases against the 85% target. Just need to end show. Sorry about that. And then in terms of the target that wasn't achieved, the office did not achieve the issuing of the 3 fraud detection reports and issued 1, and attributes this deviation to the shortage of resources and the complexity of the project, and that additional resources will be added to support the team working on this. In terms of the Executive Council system support and services, the 1 target under the sub-program was achieved, which is the 1 quarterly report on the decision matrices produced for Executive Council cycle meetings. In terms of the planning, monitoring, and evaluation, sub-program reflects 2 targets for the quarter and achieved all 2. 1 quarterly performance report on the implementation of the provincial priority plans submitted to EXCO, and 29 improvement plans facilitated. The office exceeded the target of 25 improvement plans. And this positive achievement on this target is attributed to the officials going the extra mile with minimal resources. In terms of summary, Program 3 achieved 11 of its 12 targets planned in the quarter under review, translating to 90% of the targets against a budget of 93%. Just as a summary of budget spent, the table, I'm going to go straight to the summation of the budget analysis. In terms of the annual budget, as previously alluded in the summary, the total expenditure to date reflects 125.2 million in the quarter under review against the annual budget of 886 million, registering 14% expenditure of the annual budget. Expenditure for the quarter stands at 125.2 against the budget of 171.9 million, reflecting a 73% spend of the budget for the quarter. Program 1 in administration was allocated a budget of 38.7 million for the quarter and spent 29.9, underspending by 23%. The office attributes the reason for the underspending to the GG Cars invoices for March, April, and May, which were only paid in July, including the June invoice for Vodacom, which will be paid in July due to delays with Vodacom. The other challenge was the bulk SMS limit with Vodacom for hotline call center, which was blocking the system, and the limit was lifted at the end of June. In terms of Program 2, it was allocated a budget of 96.3 million for the quarter under review and spent 60.8 million, reflecting an expenditure of 63% of the budget. The underspending of 37% of the quarterly budget is attributed to internal processes, which will fast track in the second quarter, and the fact that the Microsoft license was paid on the 31st of March, and it's usually paid in the first quarter of the new financial year. The office further adds that the affected items will then be adjusted to align with the main adjustments. In terms of Program 3, it's spent 93% by the end of quarter 1. The underspending of 7% has been attributed to 1 study that had been put on hold due to an investigation that is going on, that is performance monitoring and evaluation, and 3 events that were cancelled due to delays on the internal process. GIS also took place virtually and no services required from the supplier. So Program 3's underspending is also due to the project being put on hold and some delays and virtual meetings, which resulted in savings. And in terms of oversight on emerging priorities, there has been nothing reported in this quarter. Then on public involvement, just as a highlight, the office did hold a number of public engagements in the quarter, which involved the public. These range from the Nasispani program initiatives, public education programs, and visits by the Premier to various sites that need service delivery monitoring. In terms of oversight on project management, we just have the reporting on the life Dhlamini and the progress on this. There's office reported verification of claims that have been received after handing down of arbitration award. The total claims verified as at 30th of June stand at 522. Total claims that qualify to receive compensation stand at 411. Total claims not qualifying to receive compensation as at 30 June 2023 stand at 111. Total claims paid at the first portion as at 30th of June stands at 364. This was previously reported as 365, which included one payment to a curator. Total claims that were under assessment to confirm the rightful beneficiaries before payment, that stands at 14. There are total claims awaiting processing for payment, that currently stands at 9 claims. Total claims awaiting resolution for family disputes, that stands at three claims, and the total claims from claimants stand at 21%. Then with regards to the second portion, the total claims paid as at 30 June for the second portion stand at 65. Total claims awaiting processing of payment are at 14. And then in terms of the deceased claims, the office has reported that the Fed group is currently assisting families of deceased mental health care users with the administrative process that has to do for the payment of the second portion. Then in terms of the survivor claims, the High Court application process that's contemplated in Rule 57 of the Uniform Rules on High Court is still underway, and further details will then be reported as and when the court orders are issued. Then the office has also closed on saying that the process to close the Life SED Money project is currently underway. Then in terms of oversight on international treaties, most of these have been reported in the last quarter. I'm not going to go into the detail of these, just to say that the Gauteng province and Emilia-Romagna region treaty still, the discussions on this treaty still stand. The Gauteng provincial government and Bavaria agreement, as well as the Gauteng letter of intent with the Republic of Finland. These were spoken of in the last quarter of the 22-23 financial year. Then in terms of oversight on department entity compliance, there were a total number of requests received from the Auditor General. For information, the office received 27 of these requests. In terms of the requests that were due in this quarter, there were 3, and then requests that the office managed to submit to the Auditor General in the quarter, there were 24, and there were none received from the PSC. Then in terms of the capacitated public service, a summary of the status of the public service in the Office of the Premier. Currently, the total posts stand at 625, and 530 of these are filled. There were 43 terminations, 5 terminations of permanent employees, 32 terminations of interns and learners, and 2 transfers out to other departments. There were also new appointments in the quarter. There were 68, that is 2 permanent, 4 fixed term contract, and 62 learners. Then in terms of GOD compliance, the office stands at women SMS level at 55%, people with disabilities at 2%, youth at 16%. Women at SMS does show a decline from the 58% that was reported in the last quarter. We can then assume that some of the terminations did come from this group, and there is also a need for improvement in the space of employees with disabilities. Then in terms of oversight on any other committee focus area, we spoke to the issue of the information level test tool, which looks at, amongst others, whether the report presented to the Oversight Committee is presented in a manner that aims to enlighten the committee and assess the quality of the report in its effort to present information required. In terms of the first quarter of the office, the committee would have observed the program analysis section that there were quite a number of sub-programs missing in this quarter's reporting. There's been a cross-reference with the APP submitted to the committee on the 28th of February 2023. The updated APP of the office, and it was found that these sub-programs do indeed still form part of the office's APP for 23-24, however, not reported on, as some of these have annual targets. Just a table that tabulates some of the missing programs in the quarter. And as a summary to say, these sub-programs are still part of the APP, except they should be included in the reporting, except for Executive Secretariat Services and Policy and Research, whose targets only begin in Q2. Then in terms of overall assessment, as I move towards closure, the office's performance is evident that while the achievement of targets is at 73%, the underspending of more than 5% threshold for all 3 programs is concerning. Program 2's underspending of 37% of the budget for the quarter. The office then must ensure that there are measures in place to ensure spending is in line with planned targets. Furthermore, the first quarter report is aimed at assessing whether the office is on track in achieving its planned targets, It's concerning that most of the spend targets, the procurement spend targets, have not been achieved in the quarter, with people with disabilities displaying an even lower achievement trend. Furthermore, while the office has a few quality checking standards for the report, it does seem there are minor glitches in this space, as evident in more than 2 errors in the report on reporting targets, as well as overall omitting to report on certain spaces. The committee should monitor the implementation of programs going forward and ensure that the office is able to meet its targets in the financial year 23-24. Then in terms of the questions emanating from the analysis, what is the reason for the non-reporting or under the sub-program intergovernmental relations, even though the program does display 2 targets due in the quarter under review? Please appraise the committee on the reasons for the non-reporting of any information under outcome 3, inclusive quality education and healthcare and growing skills needed for the economy, as this was left blank. Kindly appraise the committee on whether the payment on the outstanding Vodacom June invoice was effected in July as per reporting. While the committee notes that in terms of different levels of quality control, it does seem that there are a number of gaps at this point. Please provide the committee with measures put in place to ensure quality control of the report prior to submission to the committee. Thank you, Chair and honourable members. That brings me to the end of the report.
No, thank you very much, Dhlamini, for this comprehensive analysis of the first quarter. And I think you also captured correctly the questions. I'm happy that we are having this round table on the people with disability, because the office is not meeting the set targets. But members, any contributions, questions? Or I see one hand, but I don't see who is this. Oh, there are 2
Member
now. Member
Fuchs.
Member Fuchs and Member who? There are 2 hands.
Chair, Member Alberts, thank you.
Oh, Member Fuchs and Member Alberts, in that order.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, in light of the focus by the Premier on the so-called TISH areas, it creates a very negative impression that the Office of the Premier is not able to meet the targets related to empowerment, especially to spending, in the township economy. Now, the reasons presented in this report, for this deviation, suggest that there were insufficient responses to request for quotations from people in the townships, and it ascribes it to a lack of focus. Now, that's a very generalized comment, a lack of focus. Chair, I think that I really would be interested to know who is not focusing and what specific interventions will be put in place in order to ensure that this particular target is met. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Fuchs. Member Alberts.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to echo Member Fuchs' question here. I think it's very important that we understand what are the problems that they experience to meet the targets in TISH areas, the money that the taxpayers' money that's spent to ensure that there's proper development taking place there, but also then the older targets that we've had even before we had these interventions in a TISH area. We look at the older targets like people with disabilities, 0.46% against 7%. Every time we come to a report like this, we see people with disabilities not being a seriously taken target group to assist them to get into the economy via the government's own spending. So we must ask, why is this a problem? Why is this not happening? If you look at this trend, Chair, if you look at this trend that's always below the target is already quite low. It's just 7%. And then you look at Life Esidimeni, what happened to people with disabilities there. And then we also have a look at the spending cuts that took place in the beginning of this year with regards to NGOs that work with people with disabilities, and then was reinstated after a huge outcry. We must ask whether this government is serious about helping this group of people at all. And we must ask some very probing questions with regard to this to the department. Thank you very much. To the Premier's office. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Member Alberts. I hope, Dhlamini, we have captured the comments, the suggestions from members. And we must also not forget, members, that on the 17th we still have the chance to ask the office directly and engage them directly. But thank you very much for highlighting those two issues, members. Do I have any hands? I don't have any. Oh, I see there's two new hands, but I don't see whose hands are there. I just see Member Mateke. Switch off your video.
We're seeing the bedroom somewhere, the background of somebody.
You are muted, Member Mateke.
It can be the bedroom. My apologies. I was putting the phone on my pocket. It can't be the bedroom. I'm not like those that goes to the bottle store during meetings.
Member Mateke and Member Malema in that order.
Chair, I'm comfortable with the research. My questions will be directed to the Office of the Premier when they appear before the committee. Mine is to just thank Premier Dhlamini for a detailed presentation. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Member Malema.
Thank you once more, Chair. As if he knew what I wanted to say, Honorable Member Macheke there. But firstly, allow me to start off by welcoming the presentation, well thought analysis by the researcher there, Dhlamini. I don't know if maybe there's some kind of a relation between the presenter and the chair of the session. Yeah, but I fully agree with the questions that were raised by the two honorable members there, Honorable Member Fuchs and Honorable Member Alberts. More so on when it relates to the non-performance or poor performance when it comes to people living with disability. I mean, it's evidently clear that the office of the Premier has confronted with some serious difficulties, because I mean, if you look at the percentage in terms of their achievement against what they were supposed to, the set plans targets, you can see that there is a serious struggle there. And I think they really need to provide us with a mechanism on how they are intending to intervene in making sure that they're going to up the game on that one, because I think this thing has been recurring for some time, and it clearly suggests that going forward, it will still recur. So there has to be some, I think, a different approach in how they are approaching this thing, so that at least they are able to improve on that. But I want to agree with Honorable Member Macheke that some of the questions that we would have wanted to pose here, tacitly directed to the Office of the Premier, will pose them in the session wherein we'll be having the Premier's office. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Malema and Member Macheke. And thank you for those contributions. In African culture, there is no Subongo Fanana. Therefore, let me declare upfront that yes, we are related. We are both Dhlamini.
Okay. Okay.
But we are able to separate professionalism and being related. Therefore, I'm happy that you see that she has done an excellent job. Most of the members, despite the challenges, that she's also the researcher for the sector, not only for us. But I can assure you, Dhlamini, we have raised the issue with the secretary, and he's working on it. Can I then therefore have the mover for the adoption of this analysis?
Chair, do we have to adopt it or to note the analysis?
No, we just have to note. We don't need to adopt. So it's my policy.
Yeah,
members.
and
yeah.
And whilst we're still on that, we are agreeing fully with the questions that she's proposing that we should pose to the Office of the Premier.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Minute. And then can we move then to 7.2, which is the analysis of the GPL's first quarter report, Mr. Mohole. Uber King.
Chair, I don't see him on the list. I think he just got disconnected because he was here earlier.
He was, yeah. Oh, okay. While he is but we cannot have our stakeholders while they have not heard the analysis of the GPL. Ms. Montis, are you ready with the deliberations and the adoption of the FIS?
Good morning, Chair. Yes, I'm ready with the International Study Tour report.
While you are trying to get to connect Mr. Mohole, let's get to item 10.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, honorable members, stakeholders, and colleagues. Chair, I'll start on page 9 because the first part of the report is just a summary of the motivation that was presented to the committee for the study tour. So I will focus only on the organizations visited by the committee, lesson learned, and recommendation and infusing of the lesson learned. With regard to the organization that the committee visited, had a meeting with the New York State Senator Louis R. Sepulveda, Assembly members Chantal Jackson and Michelle Solagers to discuss issues of common interest. The delegation attended the Senate session in the gallery of the Capitol building. The delegation also attended the Assembly session in the gallery and were introduced during the introduction session. The delegation met with Honorable Guy J. Guson, Chairperson of the Budget and Taxation Committee of the State of Maryland. And the third meeting was with Chairperson Honorable Benjamin Benz, Maryland House of Delegates Appropriation Committee, joined by Vice Chair Wilskins and Delegate Jessica Feldmark of the Ways and Means Committee, State of Maryland Appropriation Committee, and Ways of Means Committee. The committee discussed the Maryland public participation system and interactions with the public during the budget process governance, and the Maryland Legislature processes of oversight. The fourth meeting was with Assembly Chantal Jackson's office, Mr. Raskin Pimentel, Communication Director, New York State, Capitol State Building. The fifth meeting was with New York Empire State Development Corporation to discuss the following: policy and operations with the legislative sector, policy, legislative affairs, and green initiatives, Empire State Development work and its legislative linkages. And the sixth meeting was with Council of State Governments, Eastern Region, to discuss the following: excuse me, intergovernmental relations for advancement of key factors of economic growth, interlegislative relations and advancement of cooperations between governance structures. Then the last meeting, the seventh one, was with the New York City Mayor's Office for International Affairs. And the discussion was around housing challenges in the city and the city strategies in addressing this, and metropolitan standard of living and management of influx in the city. In terms of how the trip added value to the actual work of the committee will use the lesson learned to improve its oversight role over the Office of the Premier and to ensure interrogation of the Office of the Premier's APP to ensure it is responding to the critical issues for the advancement of a GCR for Gauteng that is in line with lesson learned. The committee fostered a working relationship with the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Phil Ramos, who reiterated that the committee must return for a more rigorous session with him over a number of days to ensure that the relations for start during the trip are maintained and that the committee provide rigorous presentation on its work and ways in which the oversight is conducted over the Office of the Premier to allow for beneficial lessons for both sides. In terms of the presentation made by the committee during the trip, while the committee had prepared a presentation over the committee of the Office of the Premier covering the GPL's committee system oversight and accountability, as well as challenges, the committee did not make the presentation due to the host committee having prepared considerable presentation, which did not allow for time slot for the visiting committee. In terms of lesson learned, generic lesson learned from the trip that may be of value to the committee or to the GPL at large, the committee has learned that the benchmarking sharing of best practices contribute positively on increasing the demands for national and international work on oversight and accountability, and enhancing the discourse on the continued development of South African legislature through associated bodies is important. Strengthening the core of the legislature, that of lawmaking oversight over the executive, facilitating public participation and cooperative governance through benchmarking and sharing of the best practices is imperative. The above lesson learned will contribute to deepening democracy and strengthening the GPL mandate. Below is a summary of the key issues from discussions on the issues of committee and implementing its constitutional mandate, and give guidance to both the Office of the Premier and the Legislature in Gauteng on issues related to oversight and accountability. The Maryland State Legislature is only in session 90 days a year. The rest of the 9 months, should anything happen, the revenue changes has to be made. This resides with the Board of the Public Works. How these changes take control, Board has authority to effect changes of up to 25% and report back to the Legislature. This process includes public testimony to allow members of the public to put input on any changes. In the period, 2,500 bills were introduced and 800 passed during 2023. Maryland has a state board of elections, a body appointed by the governor with an election administrator who functions as the president of the elections and is responsible for implementing the laws passed. But it is the state that decides on how the elections are run and all parameters. The General Assembly sets polls, polling places, early voting, and processes around that. The state board then implements that together with the counties. On cooperation with the various research institutions, oversight bodies, and other branches of government in order to build and strengthen capacity, the Council of State Government provides research and analysis on a variety of topics at the request of the policymakers. For example, CSG has developed research briefs on state responses to the crisis in Europe, state facilitation of tax filers, securing federal individual tax credits, tax incentives for businesses to hire individuals with disabilities, regulations of microbreweries and wine producers, regulations of guardianship, GPS tracking for domestic violence perpetrators, retail data collection and storage of driver's license information, consumer recycling regulations, and how to assess retail spaces for tax purposes and mental support for postpartum depression. CSG convenes a national inter-branch task force for 16 policymakers, 8 from the legislative branch and 8 from the executive branch, to consider how best to optimize recent and future federal funding for long-term services and supports in home and community-based services. The Empire State Development promotes vigorous and growing state economy through investment and job creations and supporting diverse local economies in New York State. On exchange ideas and information on challenges related to oversight and accountability, legislature appropriates and the government passes the budget into law. The next hurdle is for the Board of Public Works. This is a 3-member panel made of governor, controller, and the treasurer to approve the projects. Public Executive Service that then work through the different entities to get proper work to ensure that the funds are properly allocated. In terms of foreign investment, Secretary of States with international relations and with sister states and sister programs that allow for the international connection. And Secretary of State works with international relations and with sister states and sister city programs to allow for international connection and foreign investment. If a secretary comes before the legislature for a hearing on that budget, the governor has a huge authority on what priorities the state funds. The governor has huge authority on what priorities the state funds through the budget. On exploring possibility of closer working relationship with various metropolitan states counterparts on the basis of complementary issues at subnational level. The Deputy Speaker of the New York State Assembly, Honorable Phil Ramos, extended his welcome to the Committee for Future Collaborative relations, and an invitation for the committee to come in and sustain close working relationship with the committee. He further expressed appetite to work with the committee on matters of oversight and fostering working relations. On matters of parliamentary oversight, the committee was able to engage the Ways and Means Committee in Maryland State Legislature, New York State Assembly to learn from their counterparts matters related to budget and public involvement. 4 areas of jurisdiction: election law, gambling law, education, and revenues. Ways and Means Committee focuses on working to restructure in order to identify opportunities to fund overhaul that must take place for the race course to be functional as a contributor of revenue in the state. Education, virtual education has been critical post-COVID. One of the major bills, oversight, and parameters around that, what the future of virtual education looks like. Priorities on educator storage, getting teachers into the pipeline to ensure funding for these teachers. That bill also came before the committee. In terms of education law, election voting precincts and ensuring the number of voting sites on election days are not reduced past certain amounts. This law allows for the different voting location maintaining this on election days. In terms of Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland, the largest caucus in the country with 31% African American. Black Caucus has about 50 members and contributes to legislation on matters of equality, fighting discrimination in the property space, and ensuring fair representation of issues of the Black community. On the digital parliament, the Maryland State Legislature introduced a bill to look at issues of ensuring a virtual education model. Legislature currently has virtual resources to support its work, but most of the focus is on ensuring sustainability of the virtual space when it comes to education in Maryland. I'll move to page the recommendations. Recommendations and infusing of lesson learned. The committee hereby recommends that sharing knowledge with developed countries is beneficial for the committee to learn from the experience of these countries. To discharge its mandate effectively, the committee should be in a position to learn from other countries so far as to foster relations. In terms of lesson to be infused into GPL committee business, and propose KPIs in the committee operational plans and the timeframes. The first lesson learned to be infused into GPL is the benchmarking and sharing of best practices contribute positively on increasing the demands for national and international work on public accounts, improve alignment and collaboration between organs of state of legislature sector in pursuing of NDP through events of learning and sharing, and the time frames are 2024-2025. The second one is enhance, that is a course on the continued development of Africa through associated bodies is important. Then the second KPA, there is improve alignment and collaboration. But I think this is the same. My apologies, Chair. We'll look into this one. The third lesson to be infused into GPL, strengthening the core business of the legislature, that of lawmaking, oversight over the executive, facilitating public participation and cooperative governance through benchmarking and sharing of best practices is imperative. Then the KPA to be infused in the committee operational plan is enhance accountability and service delivery aligned to strategic provincial priorities, and the time frame is 2023-2024. Thank you, Chair and members.
Thank you. Thank you, Neo. Members, any comments? My comment is that, you know, at times we think developed countries don't have the same problems as we have. I think our engagement with the New York senators, especially those who are representing African areas, they've got the same problem, a lot that we can learn from them. Members, any takers? In the absence of that, I don't think we need to adopt this report so that it goes to the House. Can I have a mover for the adoption? Those who are in the trip. Members.
I move as I move, Chair. It's Member Alberts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I have a second?
Chair, although I was not there on the last day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. It was a good trip and we have learned a lot in that trip. Is Bu Obaking connected?
Yes, Chair.
Are you connected, Bob?
I'm connected. Humble apologies, Chair, for that.
Okay, can you please then make your presentation on the first quarter analysis of the GPL?
Okay. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee, esteemed guest of the committee, as well as my colleagues. My humble apologies once again, Chair, for the disconnection. Chair, I think the colleague has already indicated that we're presenting the first quarter of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. In terms of the presentation outline, Chair, would basically deal with the executive summary, introduction, policy framework, compliance, oversight on strategic priorities, technical performance, program analysis, the budget, the sub-program budget analysis, as well as focus on the questions for consideration. During the quarter under review, Chair, we indicated that the GPL continued to hold the executive to account. The Housing Committee supported the implementation of SOM through the 6 strategic objectives, and some of the achievements are as follows. In the quarter under review, there were 15 performance targets that were set. 12 of these were achieved. 3 were not achieved, and the 3 that were not achieved, Chair, would have been the same that the GPL was struggling to implement even during the last financial year. And this talked to the leadership initiative implementation plan, the achievement of milestones of the HR implementation plan, as well as the consideration of House resolutions responses by the committees. As I've indicated, 80% of the plan targets were achieved during the quarter under review. There was the general overview of targets included the processing of question papers, written and oral, virtual Housing Committee oversight activities, adherence to the legislative prescripts of FAMPLA international benchmarking exercises with the other legislatures. There was also processing and payment of service providers within the stipulated timeframes. In terms of the budget, Chair, we indicated that there was a 92.5 expenditure pattern for the quarter under review. The GPL was allocated an amount of 277 million, 77.83, and it spent 250 6, material underspending there by 20 million. Leadership and governance, it has overspent its allocated budget, and we'll get into the gist of this when I present this, Chair. They overspent the budget by 77%. That would be the first program. Office of the Secretary is the second program, underspent by 11.4. Corporate support service underspent by 11.7. Core business underspent by 15.2%. Office of the CFO underspent there by 15.3%. I think Ms. Dhlamini has already set the tone in as far as what we seek to do with the quarterly performance assessment, Chair. I would skip the slides that she has already spoken at length with. In terms of the legislative and legal framework, Chair, this is, I think members are very fluent and aware with this particular prescripts. I would ask to be allowed to skip. In terms of the oversight on technical performance, the achievements of predetermined objectives, I've already indicated, Chair, that 3 targets were not achieved during the quarter under review out of the 15 that were set. In terms of the information of APP targeted achievements for the quarter under review, we indicated that the performance target for the quarter under review was skewed towards the strategic objective 5, which accounted for 7 of the 15 targets, followed by strategic objective 1, which had 4 targets, and the last 3 strategic objectives had 1 target each. The leadership and governance as the first program, Chair, just to indicate that it provides political and strategic leadership within the GPL. For the quarter under review, there were only one. There were in the quarter under review 2 targets were planned and achieved. That is the one oversight quarterly oversight report on the performance of committees, as well as the 40% achievement of milestones of the 2023-2024 ILR strategy. During the quarter under review, strategic objective 1, during the quarter under review, the GPL continued to conduct oversight and scrutiny over the executive's action and performance. Furthermore, the midterm review report of the performance of the GPL against the 5-year strategy was presented, and the final presentation was made by the accounting officer. In terms of the targets on the implementation of the ILR 5-year strategy, various committees conducted study tours to identify the counterpart countries. In addition, the legislature participated in several engagements such as the CPA, Africa, National Speakers Forum, as well as SALSA activities. In terms of the second program, Chair, Office of the Secretary, it has 3 performance targets. That would be the number of compliance performance information, number of transversal mainstreaming, as well as a number of initiatives conducted to promote ethical leadership. For the quarter under review, there was 1 target that was set, and that would be to compliance performance information progress on the APP, and this was achieved for the quarter under review. I think I've already indicated that the target was achieved, Chair. The third program would be corporate support service. It had set 4 planned performance targets, and that would be percentage achievement of milestones in the leadership initiative, percentage implementation of scheduled member training, percentage of achievement of milestones in the ICT strategy, as well as performance achievement of milestones in the HR strategy. 2 of these were achieved and 2 were not achieved. The ones that are not achieved, I think I would have already indicated that would be the leadership initiative implementation plan, as well as the HR strategy implementation plan. Then the committee should be provided with the non-achievement of these targets, as these were also not achieved in the last financial year. Core business as the 4th program, Chair, it had about 7 targets. For the quarter under review, they managed to achieve 6, and 1 target that was not achieved talks to the consideration of House resolution responses by committees. So with regard to targets under strategic objective 1, 3 of 4 performance targets that were achieved, that would be adoption of SOM reports, oversight, question papers produced, and 3 motions tabled. A total of 31 sector oversight reports were produced by various committees of the House and subsequently tabled for the adoption by the House and during the quarter under review. Apologies. These were quarterly and budget oversight reports. Furthermore, 16 oversight question papers were produced and communicated to all MPLs in the quarter under review. Additional 3 motions were tabled before the House in the reporting period for debate and voting in some instances, and these were the Gauteng Provincial Appropriation Bill, the Digital Economy, as well as the Gauteng Community Safety Oversight Bill. In terms of the targets under lawmaking, program had 1 planned performance target in the reporting period, namely that would be bills processed. There are a total number of 13 bills that were before the House committees, which are at different stages of lawmaking, and 12 of these were Section 76, 1 Section 77, and 2 provincial bills. With regard to targets under public participation, there were 2 planned targets, and that would be a number of petitions considered as well as a number of public education workshops conducted. All these particular targets were achieved. In terms of the petitions, in the quarter under review, a total of 41 petitions were dealt with. 38 of these petitions were adopted. 1 was deferred for further investigation, and 2 were rejected. In terms of the last program chair, the Office of the CFO, it contributes to strategic objective 5, that would be enhance public confidence in the governance and leadership of the legislature through 2 performance targets, that would be unqualified audit opinion, as well as a number of MTF budget table in line with the prescribed time frame. For the quarter under review, there was only 1 planned target, that would be the MTF budget tables, and this was indeed tabled within the prescribed time frames. The quarter under review, quite a number of activities would have taken under this particular program to ensure that there was financial management as well as governance of the GPL. This included, amongst others, a contract management review, IT. 3 reviews are still in the fieldwork phase, that would be IT, finance, as well as SCM. Furthermore, the planned compliance activities such as the implementation of the risk management plan, payments of monthly constituency allowance to all political parties, and the preparation of 2 statutory returns report. In terms of the BBB target, Chair, here we are indicating that the GPL has further revised down, and the reason for this should be provided to the committee. In terms of HDI, it achieved 69% against a target of 15, which was previously 60%. Women, it achieved 31% against the target, which was revised down to 8%, which was previously 30. Youth, it achieved 5% against a revised downwards target of 2.5, which was previously 10%. PWDs, it achieved 0.24 against the revised target of 0.5. This is the only target that was not revised downwards. In terms of the microanalysis, Chair, we're talking about the budget analysis. Here, the budget, departmental budget, we're indicating that for the 2023-2024 financial year, the GPL has been allocated an amount of 857 million to undertake its activities. For the quarter under review, it was allocated 277.83. It managed to spend 256, under spending there by 20.93 million. Compensation of employees amounted to about 89.6 million of the quarter budget, and it spent 99% of for the quarter under review. This included salaries for GPL and political staff, 13 check for political support staff, funeral benefits, UIF contribution, as well as leave encashment in relation to employment terminations. In terms of spending on goods and services, during the quarter under review, the GPL spent about 51.1 million. That would be 70% of the projected expenditure for the quarter under review. And this, some of the indicators would have been the travel expenses, security contract at 4.3 million, operation expenses, as well as advertising and marketing amongst the others. On aggregate, the various indicate that there was a 7.5 underspending there. Compensation of employees underspent by 947, and this is due to underpayment of salaries for P7 and P8 staff members due to outstanding 2021-2022 pay progression, and fill vacancies due to staff resignations, and lower than budgeted salary payments for the P9 to P16 staff members because not fully complying with the IPMS policy, and therefore not getting the 1.5 pay progression that was budgeted for. Goods and services, as I've already indicated, it underspent there by 21 million, and this would have been because of outstanding invoices from service providers, municipal services amongst the others, Sage building rental. The GPL, it indicates that it was built incorrectly during the quarter under review. Members would recall that the contract for Sage building was terminated at the end of June. Amongst the reasons that they made budget underspend under goods and services would have been committee activities that were planned but not undertaken at 3.7 million. Then, Chair, maybe just to disaggregate, leadership and governance recorded an overspending in the quarter under review of 12.4 million. And that would have been what I indicated, that they overspent by 77.1%. Compensation of employees under leadership and governance underspent for the very same reason that I would have provided, underpayment of salaries, as well as lower than budgeted salary payments for staff members as a result of not fully complying with the IPMS policy. Goods and services under leadership and governance overspent by 12 million. And this would have been due to committees, international study tours and conferences that were undertaken earlier than projected. The travel was projected from June 2023 onwards. But now, Chair, members, the question would be that I think in terms of the planning process of the legislature, they would have known that they would get into this particular season wherein members would not be able to travel due to party commitments. So GPL should have planned properly so that it avoids this thing of budget overspending, and given the reason would have been that the international study tours and conferences were undertaken earlier than projected. Office of the Secretary as a second program, it underspent there by 503,000, and the reasons would have been, the reason for this would be compensation of employees underspent by 175,000 due to unfilled vacancies, as well as outstanding pay progression for P7 to P8. And also the reason that I would have indicated around the P9 to P16, 1.5 pay progression when they did not fully comply. Goods and services under Office of the Secretary underspent there by 328,000, and this would have been due to legal fees, midterm evaluation report, as well as what they say would have been savings. Corporate support service underspent there by 21.2 million, and one of the reasons given for this was that the compensation of employees overspent there by 978,000 due to the payments of 13 check to political support staff. The payment was not projected as there was no specific allocation. Also, this talks to the GPL not aligning its planning with this, because they are saying that in case the affected political parties are expected to reimburse the GPL at the end of the year because they exceeded the allocation, how can you effect a payment which were not projected? Corporate support goods and services underspent there by 23.7 million, outstanding invoices and other things that I would have indicated around the municipal services, the GPL being not correctly billed by Sage building. Core business as the fourth program underspent there by 9.6 million, and that would be also the same reasons that I've already spoken to under payment of salaries of P7, P8, unfilled vacancies, as well as lower than budgeted salary payments for P6 to P16. Goods and services, it underspent there by 8.4 million, and the reasons provided would have been amongst the indicators would have been committee activity that was planned but not undertaken, records management project at 1.3 million, with sector parliaments, the program and dates for activities are still being finalized. NCOP provincial week, this has been rescheduled for the third term, the third quarter. Office of the CFO underspent there by 2.1 million. Under goods, compensation of employees, the very same reasons that I would have spoken to without necessarily repeating, Chair. Amongst the under goods and services, the underspending there was under Office of the CFO was 1.8 million. And this is due to 1.2 million would have been audit fees, as well as photocopier consumables. To date, the GPL has spent an amount of 256.9, equating to 30% of the annual allocated budget. Of the total expenditure to date, 48.8% or 124 million has been spent on political parties through compensation for support staff, traveling, training consultant, as well as transfers. Compensation of employees, it sums to 89.6 million, representing 21.3% of the total allocated personnel budget. Goods and services, to date, the expenditure was at 51.5 million, representing 19.5% of the total goods and services budget. In terms of the last section, Chair, would be the questions to be addressed to the legislature. The legislature, what is the reason for the GPL not to attain the following plan target: leadership initiative, implementation plan, achievement of milestones in the HR strategy, implementation plan, consideration of House resolutions, responses by committees. And the second question would be, why were the BBB targets adjusted downwards during the quarter under review? The question number 3 would be, the budget overspent by Program 1 Leadership and Governance is attributed to international committees travel, which some are said to have been unfunded. Does this reflect poor planning by the GPL? And the fourth and last question would be, were there any disciplinary cases during the quarter under review? If yes, what were the nature of such disciplinary cases? We're asking this, Chair, in the background of the investigations that is ongoing, but there's no clear indicator as to when this would be finalized. That brings me to the end of my presentation. I thank you, Chair, members, colleagues, for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkhone. Thank you for this analysis. Members, any inputs or comments?
Mr. Chair, my hand's up. Member Bloom.
Yes, Honourable Bloom.
Yeah, I've just got three things.
My hand is up, Honourable Chair, Member Adams.
Okay, perfect. In that order, Member Bloom and Member Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Three things. I think the unfunded international tours is serious. I mean, that should be elementary, that you that you clear that beforehand. We need to get a full report on that. I'm concerned about 5.8 million rand spent on the Sage building. That's a huge amount of money. Did they just trash the building? I mean, how much of that was due to our occupancy there? I can't see why. Sounds like a very bad lease agreement if we have to pay 5.8 million rand to rehabilitate the building. And finally, the disciplinary cases, we were told some shocking figures of people claiming, 90,000 rand traveler's allowance. This was during the COVID periods. I mean, this was like 2 years ago odd. What's happening to those disciplinary cases? I mean, they're very serious. Huge amounts of money, and discipline really shouldn't be dragging out. And there are quite a large number of staff involved in those claims. Thank you.
Member Adams.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. No, I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you for the presentation. I think some time ago, Honourable Chair, in the OCPOL meeting, my good friend and colleague, Honourable Fuchs, made a statement and said that he was, or he believed or heard that the parties that receive political party funding, constituency funding, uses the money for their own use. I think the members would remember that in the executive. I just wanted to, at this point, after this presentation, there was audits done for all political parties. Let me speak for us. Let me speak for other parties, for the ACTP. And we had unqualified audits from external audits, number one. Point number two is that also the legislature itself received an unqualified audit. And the unqualified audit in the letter from the secretary did state that all political parties' finances were in order. So I just wanted to put that case to rest, so it doesn't hang out there that people would latch onto it and begin to make nefarious statements. And the executive can confirm that. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Adams. I hope again we have picked up those comments from members, and we are going to have the opportunity on the 17th to engage with the GPL leadership. Thank you. Can I then move to the next item, which is our submissions from our stakeholders, and I am told that we have the PSC, we have the CGE, we have the FFC, and we've got States SA. I'm not informed of those of our stakeholders who are the ones who will make our inputs, but I'll just take hands from them, and we welcome you again and value your partnership with us. PSC, I think from your side. Yes, I see a hand, but on my side it doesn't show Kuban. Please come in.
Okay, my name is just on behalf of Commissioner Mavuso, I would like to tender an apology. They were invited by the Deputy President today. From our side, we will make a written submission to Obagen. There were a few areas that we noted. We also need to provide clarification on those areas, but we'll submit to Obagen. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. CGE. FFC. States SA.
Yeah, fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. And thank you for your attendance. Members, can we then move to item 10, which is the deliberation adoption of the FIS report on the digital legislature project? Dhlamini?
It's not me, Chair.
Oh, it's not you?
It's Polani, Chair. It's Mr. Stoll.
Oh, okay. Mr. Stoll, come in.
Thank you, Chair. I will start with the executive summary. The committee identified the digital legislature project of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature as its focus intervention study topic. The topic is aimed to assess the progress made in the implementation of the digital legislature, challenges and opportunities. Since the inception of this project, the committee has not been fully appraised on its progress. The COVID-19 pandemic forced the country to go on total lockdown, and the GPL had to resort to digital platform in which all members, staff, and the public can participate, thus avoiding suspensions of the constitutional mandate of the legislature. The project was initiated in April 2020 following the dawn of COVID-19 and sought to explore key technological, procedural, and legal options for the GPL based on international experience and the capabilities within the institution. The digitalization journey is about how the GPL members, staff, and the public can take advantage of the information and communication technology. And it is ongoing process. Sorry, Chair, someone is disturbing me. The committee has noted that phase 1 of the project was completed in 2020-21 financial year. Here in a concept document project proposal and plan was developed. Literature review to benchmark best practice was conducted. Review of standing rules and drafting of visual house sitting rule was conducted. And there was the repurposing of the chamber to enable hybrid settings. Phase 2 was planned for 2022-23 financial year with hybrid committee rooms, remote interpreting service, reverse billing for the public, for public participation successfully completed. In terms of project costs, the committee notes that an amount of 7.5 million was reported to have been carried over into 22-23 financial year, and the key cost drivers were on the repurposing of the chamber and the committee rooms to host hybrid housing sittings and meetings. It is noted that the digitalization project has implications on the human resources, as all human resources policies applicable need to be aligned to enable the new business process to flourish with less impediments. The GPL reported that It is currently undergoing organizational development project to facilitate the creation of the right capacity to enable the introduction of a new way of running business. The ICT strategy and organizational operation will provide basis for alignment of human capital to thrive and be relevant in the envisioned state of GPL or dispensation. Professional development and capacity building for staff and members is vital at overall transformation and re-engineering of parliamentary practices, very key. The committee notes that post-COVID-19, the digital legislature projects is a success and the GPL is fully paperless and documents are distributed electronically using cloud application and all approvals are done electronically. Specific focus areas of these standing rules were amended to enable visual and hybrid working methods. The public can actively participate in visual or hybrid meetings using reverse billing video conferencing technology. Through you, Chair, let me go to the recommendations. There were no recommendations that were found in this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stolle. Members, any inputs? This is our report for the FIS that we conducted. In the absence of them, can I have a move for the adoption of this report? Yes, I see a hand, but it doesn't show who.
Member Hassan, Chair, I'm happy to move for the adoption.
Thank you very much, Member Hassan. Can I have a seconder?
I second, Honourable Chair, Member Adams.
Thank you very much, Member Adams. And we then move to item 11, the presentation of the analysis of the responses to resolutions for Budget Vote 1 of 2023-2024 financial year, the Office of the Premier's Adjustment Budget for 2022-2023, and the fourth quarterly performance report in the Office of the Premier. Dhlamini.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon again, Chair and honourable members and colleagues. I'm going to present the analysis of the Office of the Premier's responses to the resolutions passed by the committee. Just as a way of introduction, the document provides an analysis of resolutions passed by the Oversight Committee for implementation by the Office of the Premier, focusing on the adjustment budget for 22-23, Budget Vote 1, 23-24, as well as the fourth quarter report of the Office of the Premier for 22-23 financial year. It's important to reflect that the Oversight Committee is mandated to play an oversight role over the Gauteng Office of the Premier. The analysis will therefore focus on the extent to which the resolutions passed by the committee are responded to, as well as the adequacy of these responses. The analysis provides also the assessment of the Office of the Premiers in implementing the committee resolutions. Ideally, the House resolution, sorry, Chair. Ideally, the analysis of the resolution goes to the extent of verifying the implementation of these. However, the resolutions contained in this analysis were all information seeking and therefore did not require fieldwork verification as the expected norm. As a way of summary of the resolutions, Chair, one resolution emanated from the adjustment budget of the Office for 22-23, and it has been adequately responded to and proposed for closure. Two resolutions emanated from the Budget Vote 1, 23-24, both have been proposed for closure, and four emanated from the fourth quarter report of the Office of the Premier for 22-23, with three of these proposed for closure and one proposed that it remains open. In terms of going to the actual analysis, the resolution from the budget vote, from the adjustment budget, for 22-23, it asks that the Office of the Premier provide the committee with additional clarity on the adjustment relating to the 77 million that has been added to the budget baseline for the payment of the mental health care users by providing a financial breakdown by 24 April 2023. I'm not going to go into the actual responses, Chair, but just to give the assessment of the analysis of each of the responses. In terms of this resolution, it has been adequately responded to. The office has provided the breakdown and of the adjustment relating to the mental health care users as per the resolution. And this resolution is therefore proposed for closure. Then in terms of the second one, it emanates from the budget vote 1 for 23-24. It had asked that the office provide a report on measures put in place to avert ramifications resulting from the scaling down of various projects and the reprioritized 33 million from goods and services to ensure that service delivery projects outlined in the APP are aligned to the priorities of the province to ensure that departmental performance indicators and outputs are properly funded. The report should also explain how the Office of Premier intends to achieve outcomes of the projects that experience scaling down of funds to avoid leaving projects unfinished with no impact made on service delivery. In terms of the response, the office has provided that the budget reprioritization occurred for the purpose of ensuring that all items are properly funded. And in this regard, there is no negative impact on service delivery. The resolution is therefore proposed for closure. Then in terms of the third one, it emanated from budget vote 1 for the 23-24 financial year. It asked that the office provide a detailed information on the existing socio-economic and governance programs earmarked to ensure the inclusion of military veterans into the mainstream economy, where 1.1 million has been budgeted to intensify the military veterans program. In its response, the office has adequately responded to this resolution and has provided the detailed information on the existing socio-economic governance programs planned to ensure the inclusion of military veterans in mainstream economy, and we have therefore proposed that this resolution be closed. In terms of the fourth one, I'm just going to go down as this response has taken a number of pages. And then in terms of the fourth one, it emanates from the fourth quarter report of the Office of Premier for 2022-23 financial year. It had asked that the office provide reasons for developing a new Gauteng Youth Integrated Development Strategy instead of amending the existing one, since funds were utilized in the compilation. The report should explain the plans in place for the Gauteng Youth Panel in the new direction of skills-based approach that GPG is taking. In addition, explain how the information or data that the panel has already collated across the 5 Gauteng regions through public awareness campaigns conducted on Gauteng Youth Integrated Strategy will be utilized. Furthermore, the report should further explain whether Harambee received the payment based on the findings related to the discrepancies in the misalignment of the set targets. On the report it has submitted that culminated in the termination of the contract. In its response, the office has provided an adequate response to support the reasons for the development of the Gauteng Youth Integrated Development Strategy, as well as the data that has been collated for the strategy. The response has also adequately covered the information on the cancellation of the Harambee contract as per the resolution. The resolution is therefore proposed for closure. Then in terms of the next one, I have to go back down. The fifth one, Chair, it has asked that the office provide a report on the service delivery impact recording 0% instead of the targeted 85% registered COCTA CDWs using the CRM system in the quarter under review due to the failure of the evidence to meet the consistency test, which was not accepted. The office has reported that the 0% achievement on the registered COCTA CDWs using the CRM system in the quarter did not impact on service delivery, as there were already CDWs registered on the system. However, the 0% was due to the M&E method of sampling, which in the end rendered some of the data inconsistent, and that a valid report on the issue will be provided in the first quarter of the 23-24 financial year. The committee would also note that the office has exceeded this target as at the end of the first quarter for 23-24. The resolution is therefore proposed for closure. In terms of the fifth one, it had asked that the office provide, the sixth one, sorry, the office provide a report on the reasons that led to the overspending under Program 3, Policy and Governance, even when underachievement of 7 out of the 28 planned targets was recorded in the quarter. The report should explain why postponement of the transfer of payments to GCRO and ZEPO 1 million from the third quarter to the fourth quarter affected the fourth quarter overspending, since postponement of targets should be inclusive of the allocated budget. The report should further include corrective measures that are in place to ensure proper planning of KPIs under this program going forward. This response has partially responded to the resolution of the resolution, as the office has failed to respond to the part of the resolution requesting for the office to highlight proper planning on KPIs going forward. Furthermore, noting that the committee had requested a further engagement on the Harambee contract, the resolution has therefore been proposed to remain open for the committee to receive the response as on the planned targets and ensuring alignment with the budget going forward, as well as the issue of the engagement on the cancellation of the Harambee contract. So this resolution remains open, Chair. Then the last one, it had asked that the office provide the details on the status of the plans to conduct the annual perception survey that was not conducted in the quarter under review, which culminated in the non-compilation of the report as planned in the APP, as the utilization of media monitoring to gauge residents' perception of Gauteng is not enough and not inclusive. Highlights the impact of postponing this report to the 2023-24 financial year. The office has provided an adequate response to the resolution, citing reasons for the non-completion of the survey, and as well as also detailing the impact and as well as the mitigation factors. And this resolution is therefore proposed for closure. That brings me to the end of the analysis, Chair. Thank you, Chair, and honourable members and colleagues.
Thank you very much for this analysis on the tracking resolution. I'm happy that we're not closing the one on Harambee, because we still have to get a full briefing from the Office of the Premier. Members, any comments? Well, in the absence of comments, I will move and ask Mr. Moholet to give us the analysis on performance report on the 2023 fourth quarter financial year of the GPL. Working.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. I'm trying to flight. My apologies for that. Just a moment. Thank you very much, Chair, members, and colleagues. Chair, I think Notile has already indicated what we seek to do, but I'll just go into a slides that tries to summarize what we seeking to do, Chair. For the fourth quarter, Chair, the committee had passed 5 resolutions for the GPL to implement, and they've adequately responded to all of these resolutions, Chair. The first resolution was that what is the reason for the GPL not to achieve the following planned targets? One would have been leadership initiative implementation plan. The proposal here, the Chair, is that they've, in as much as they've adequately responded to, it must not be closed, because they are saying they are going to appoint and implement the full plan by quarter 3 of this particular financial year. In terms of leadership, I mean, the second one would have been milestones in the HR strategy, Chair. The response that they gave, it was adequate. It was adequate, Chair. I'm just looking at my notes, because the slide, I don't know if the slides are moving that side, Chair. But in as far as the In terms of the HR implementation strategy, they adequately responded to. But the thing is, they are indicating that as part of the value creation, the job architecture framework, competency framework, and dictionary, and job description, right, guides, placement, and migration strategy, and draft micro structures have been approved for consultation with the organized labor and staff. So they going to appoint a service provider for the job evaluation during the 2023-2024 financial year. So therefore, this should not be closed. In as far as the communication and triple P strategy as well, there was a deviation there, and they've adequately responded to say that to date, the tendon video production has been awarded, and e-government is assisting the revamping of the internet as well as the intranet. The work has already commenced, so this should not be closed, as they have not concluded in as far as that. And they are saying that signage and branding will be incorporated into the space optimization project. Another resolution was that the GPL must indicate why they did not adopt the committee inquiries report, and they've adequately responded to say that no committee inquiry report was tabled, as none was completed due to extended delays in sourcing of technical experts. So this should also not be closed, Chair, and the committee should continue to monitor the performance of the GPL in as far as that goes. The second resolution was that the Office of the Secretary had underspent by 57% of their allocated budget. What was the reason for the massive budget underspending there? And the GPL has adequately responded to say that the underspending was mainly due to unfilled vacancies, as well as postponement of gender-responsive budgeting on-site training in Italy to April 2023. Given the massive underspending by the GPL, the proposal here, Chair, is that it should not be closed and should continue to be monitored on quarterly basis. The third resolution, Chair, would have spoken to underspending of capital assets during the period under review, and the response that was indicated was that initially the furniture for the office of the Deputy Speaker was at 350,000, but this they found out that it was not true to be 350,000, but 151. And this is one of the reasons that the capital assets was massively underspending. The total furniture of was 151, not 350, as reflected in the budget. Control measures have been put in place to ensure that they acquire a standardized furniture. And the other question was that, is it possible for the GPL to source cheaper furniture for the office of the DS? The response there was that unfortunately the order had already been placed and they were awaiting delivery. Management will strengthen the standardization of furniture. The procurement delays as also had contributed to capital assets underspending. Procurement delays in as far as two items, the new access machine as well as the access control tablets. So the response that they gave was adequate to say that the old system, in as far as the new access machine is concerned, was that the old system had been repaired and is currently operational. So this one we proposing that it can be closed. Also, the access control tablets, they were acquired, delivered, and are currently been synchronized to the upgraded access control. So this can be closed, Chair. The last resolution, Chair, it spoke to the MPLs experiencing and being subjected to long hours in transit during transit point during international travel. The GPL should explore better ways to deal with the international travel. That was the resolution by the committee. So the GPL had adequately responded to indicate that the travel arrangement and flight routes, international or domestic, are dealt through appointed service providers. The GPL is exploring the action of booking directly with airlines. Further factors that are contributing to long layovers. Some of the factors that would include, but not limited to, cabin class availability of seats, so on and so forth. So this, the proposal, Chair, is that it should not be closed because this will be an ongoing issue. I think that brings me to the end of the presentation, Chair. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahon. Members, any inputs or comments? Well, in the absence of that, thank you very much for both our researchers for taking these resolutions of the committee, for both the Office of the Premier and the GPL. Can we then move to correspondence? Do we have any correspondence?
None, Chair.
None. Okay, thank you very much. Can we go to item 13, which is the date of the next meeting, which is going to be the 17th at 10 on Teams. And I must officially ask Honorable Malema. Is he here?
He's on hold, Chair.
He's on hold. Okay. Yeah, I'll officially ask Honorable Malema to chair the next meeting on the 17th because I will be out of the country. Thank you very much, our stakeholders. Thank you very much, honorable members, and thank you very much, our support staff, for the work you do. The meetings stand adjourned until the 17th. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair.
Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Bye.